I want to welcome everybody to our first User Spotlight webinar. We're doing this as a meeting format because we want it to be interactive and you guys can ask questions. This is meant to be a really fun session. We've invited Marc Jacobs, who is a longtime member of the Mylio community. He's been using Mylio Photos for, how long have you been using it now, Marc?
Don't even know. A
Don't
long.
you? Well, he's been with us for a while, and he's also been a loyal attendee of many of our live events. He's come to tons of Q&As and coffee breaks, and is always super generous with his knowledge. So I would like to welcome him as our guest today, and he's going to be talking about non-destructively editing between Mylio Photos and ON1 Photo Raw. So for those of you who are looking for an advanced editing workflow, so to expand the capabilities of what you can actually do inside of Mylio Photos, there's tools that you might need or want to use that are beyond what Mylio has built in. And ON1 Photo Raw is one of the programs out there that allows you to do that. It works pretty seamlessly, as we're going to show you here with Mylio, and has tons of really cool features. Um, it's if you are not an Adobe user, so if you're not into Photoshop and Lightroom and things like that, this is a great alternative. And it's very powerful. So Marc, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you doing this for us. So I want to go ahead and turn the floor over to you and let's get started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Um, First off, if you got questions during this process, just unmute and stop me. This is the first time you see it. It's kind of a little bit of a technical process, but if you are on one or thinking of going to on one, a little slightly more technical processes are things you're going to have to get used to, I'm afraid. It's a very powerful tool. I love it. Um, I've been an Adobe user for decades, and I've finally just totally switched over to On1. So uh, I don't know that it's the best or not the best, but it's the one I use, and I'm very happy with it. Um, for those of you that don't know, I live in the Caribbean, so these pictures you're seeing are all mine. I retired here 2 years ago and never looked back. So anyway, this isn't one we're going to edit. This one's already edited. To give you an idea, though, just to let you know, this photo that you're looking at was shot on an iPhone. Um, and all iPhones, doesn't matter how far, at least in recent terms, they're all 12 megabytes. So that's all you get is 12 megabytes. If you look in the upper right corner, this picture happens to be 182.9 megabytes, but it does in fact say iPhone 14 Pro Max back camera at f1.78. So you can do other things. Now, I didn't enlarge this with On1, but you could. Yeah, you can. I couldn't remember if it went far enough or not, but it does. And then once you've got it big enough and then sharpen it, then you can go anywhere you want with them. So I'll show you a different process with Dominican Republic, Cap Cana. This is a beach not too far from me. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous place called Cap Cana. These are some of the pictures from this place. This is on the Caribbean side of the island. I actually live on the Atlantic side of the island. But we're going to start with a picture that I didn't do so well with, and it did not come off my big camera. I have a 60 megapixel Sony, but I didn't carry it with me this day. I knew it was going to be unbelievably hot, and I didn't feel like hauling a camera bag with lenses and um, forgot which went blank. White screens and gold screens, black screens, etc. I didn't want to carry it all. So I took my, and I'd been here before anyway and had taken higher res pictures. But this picture is what I would consider pretty horrible. I'm okay with the composition, but beyond that, it's pretty horrible. So, oh, actually, one other thing, and this is in the I've got a PDF that they're going to distribute later, but I need to explain one thing in On1, and it doesn't want to do that. Here, let me just load On1. I'm going to load on one separately here to show you this one thing because it's critical to making this process work.
And with regard to that PDF, what we're going to do is when you go into the community and look for the replay of this session, we're going to go ahead and post that PDF with these written instructions in that description. So if you're looking for that, we'll make sure that you guys get it when we post the recording.
Okay, in ON1 preferences in the files tab, I have a number of things I've changed here that are just based on personal preferences, but this option right here, sidecar option, save ON1 sidecar files for non-destructive edits and metadata. This does mean for ON1. And these files are not compatible with Mylio. You can save them into your Mylio area, your pictures area. In my case, the root folder is Mylio pictures. You can save them there. It won't hurt Mylio in any way. We've already verified that with tech support, but Mylio doesn't know about them. So if you use this process, you have to back up your Mylio folder independently of vaults. You should anyway, but you have to back up independently of vaults because these ON1 files will not get saved. And if you lose them, it's like losing all your edits. You get to start over again. Mylio will still have your original picture, but if you lose this ON1 file, you lose all your edits. This is no different than an XMP file. I don't know why ON1 put a different name on them. They just did. So anyway, I want to let you know that. There's a number of ways to handle backups that need to be done that way. Angela's done sessions on backups, and there's a lot of different options, but you have to make sure these get backed up, or this process will not be very useful for you. So, is it here? Is it here? Where'd it go? It's in this folder. Somebody was talking about photo restoration and color enhancement, and I can't find it. Whoop, there it is. This is a picture of my wife back in 1989. It was a few years ago, and it hasn't fared well over the years. The photo actually looks just like this scan. This scan was done on Angela's favorite scanner. I bought one too. So anyway, it's not a very good looking picture. Through a number of different passes, now this is Adobe Photoshop beta. That's what it looks like now. So like I say, the skin has been over smoothed, but it's amazing what you can do with it. So that's not the one, that's not the matching picture. Sorry about that. Where's the match? Here's the match. That's the matching picture. 85, it's even older. Okay, let me get back to what I'm supposed to be doing here. I got a little off track. Okay, so this is the picture we're going to start with. And as you can see, even zoomed, there's not a whole lot here. It's also an iPhone picture. It's 12 megabytes and it's fuzzy. If I zoom, well, I'll zoom in on one, you can see what it looks like. Anyway, using the standard Mylio process of opening in a external editor, you can either go to photo and open with, or if it was your last one, it'll be here, or if it's your last one, it'll be here. So you always want to edit original and prefer raw file. If you're going to edit in ON1, if you're going to go to a heavy duty professional editor, don't edit in Mylio first. You're not doing yourself any favors. I mean, if it's something simple like you cropped it or something, but if you start manipulating it and then feed it into ON1 or Lightroom or any program, Capture One, you're dealing with different processes of converting a raw file into pixels you can work with. Everyone has their own algorithms for it. That's why sometimes when you load a photo in one editor, it looks this way, and you load it in another one, it looks different, but nobody's changed the picture. That's why. I can't remember the specific word for that process, but that's what causes it. So always come off the original if you can. So this is going to open up ON1, and I'm going to pass a screen over the top here for a second. The picture we're working with is this one, the one that ends in 1207. It's raw, and here's Mylio's XMP for it. And the reason the XMP is dated yesterday is I had to do a test run through this yesterday to make sure I wasn't going to make a fool of myself today, which could happen anyway. But anyway, that's why the XMP is dated now. And I'll show you what happens to that folder as we progress forward. And once you get in here, you've got a lot of options where to go and where to start. I've got the wrong notes in front of me here. Here we go. There we go. Sorry about that. I had Luminar Neo notes in front of me. So we're going to open it. I thought I was prepared. Now, this is dead stock out of Mylio, but down here, there's an option to reset any settings that might be on this photo. So I'm going to hit reset all settings just to show you that it's stock. There's nothing's been done to it. So what we're going to do to start with, the first thing is I'm going to put lens correction on it. It was shot. Yeah, it was shot in wide, but vertical. So there is some rolling. Probably not visible because it's in the sky areas or on a sidewalk that looks the same. But nonetheless, I'm going to put lens correction on it just to eliminate any possibility of it. The second thing I'm going to do is, for those that aren't familiar with Mylio, they've got a fairly new option called Brilliance AI. And what it does is it looks at your picture and finds things that are maskable. So I'm going to click on it, wait for it to do its thing. And it's found three things: flora, sky, and water. Fairly accurate for the most part, but we're not going to do anything here. And I'll show you why. We're going to switch to local mode. It built the masks for me, which is really what I wanted. And I didn't have to do it. Here's what happens with flora. If I flick it off and on, you see almost no change. Part of the reason for that is they didn't build the mask right. Yeah, let me not do it that way. Let me do it this way. This is basically the mask they built. And that's not the parts I would call flora. This is what I would call flora in here. So we're not going to use it. Not really sold on their idea of flora in this case. So we're going to shut that off. We're going to shut that off. And I got to get this mask turned off now. Come on, go away, go away, go away. Maybe. Okay, we're back. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn off flora. Not really sold on what they did here. I don't know if it's the picture or they just didn't quite get the mask right, but to me, if they're going to do flora, I want to see that part right there because I might green that up a little bit, but I'm not going to take time in this demo. Instead, I'm going to go to the sky because this isn't really a demo of ON1, it's a demo of the interface. So I'm going to leave this thing basically in auto mode, but I am going to change a few of these numbers. And they are minus 48, minus 1, 34, and 0. And you probably saw some change as I did that, but probably not awfully significant. yet. Now we're going to close the sky. Hello. And we're going to open water. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to leave it basically in there automatic and then just override a couple of these numbers. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to leave those tweaks as they are. And I'm not going to show you a before and after quite yet. I think what we're going to do next is we're going to go to effects, and I'm going to add a filter called dynamic contrast. And I'm going to leave it automatic just the way it did it. And then I'm going to add another one for color enhancer. And this one I am going to modify a little bit. 18, 95, 0, and 13. Okay, now let's close down some of this junk here so I haven't got our screen so filled up. Okay, so if we look at a before and after, you can see just with a few steps that you can make pretty significant changes. I think I overprocessed the sky a little bit, but again, we're not training on one here. But I got the water a better color now. It actually is a brighter bluer green than what this shows. Sky is a little too extreme, but anyway, you've also got the split view. You can go back and forth. What's important here is if you zoom, you can see the difference in sharpness from the iPhone picture to what we've got now in these roof edges. It makes a huge difference. So that's one of the biggest differences. Now, in normal ON1 usage, when you're done, you click this check mark. You don't want to do that. We're not saving to ON1. All we want is a .on1 extension file, which is not here yet. And we want it to come back to Mylio. So what you do instead is you hit Shift E, and I don't remember anymore what that stands for. It's just a shortcut I learned. You hit Shift E, and it brings up this export dialog. Oh, yeah, Shift E is export. Couldn't remember that. Anyway, it's got my original file name, still that 1207, and it's a ding. I'm going to add an underscore display to it because it's the one I want to see in the foreground, basically in Mylio's stack. And everything else I pretty much leave the same. I mean, I am keeping it a ding, but that's a personal preference. I am keeping the metadata. And then I hit export. And when it's done, you can basically shut down ON1 completely. And if it asks if you want to save it back in over your original, you definitely want to say cancel. Now, you can see here, it already has the newer image right here. And if I bring this back, I now have a display for 1207, and I have an ON1 file for 1207. So it added the two files. Now, the one file you won't see here, but the storage you will. So there's my original ding, the XMP, and the display file. So Mylio shows you everything that it's aware of. And if you go in here, this is the picture that we built. Oh, too much purple in it or magenta in it too. Didn't notice that before. Anyway, not the best of edit, but it was quick. So, and you can see that the image has actually changed. Now, ON1 is completely closed. I hit Command Q to exit it, so it's completely shut down. So I'm going to reopen this. Again, edit an original, prefer raw. And as you can see, the edited one came back. This is the important part. I almost panicked there for a second when I saw the original, but it's because the XMP hadn't fully loaded up. So this is how you can do non-destructive edits in Mylio. This makes the round trip very simple. The process that Angela documented to do this with Lightroom. It works, and it works very well. There's a couple downsides to it. There's a lot of steps to keep track of, so you don't put the right thing in the wrong place or the wrong thing in the right place. Um, but worse than that, you have to load into their catalog. And if you're not really using Lightroom as your DAM, it's kind of a pointless exercise to load into their catalog because Lightroom doesn't work with pictures that aren't in its catalog. Now, the new Lightroom desktop, the non-classic version, but on the desktop, it does have a local mode now. But at that point, you really don't need the Adobe suite. It's a lot of excess software to work with one piece. So anyway, that's how the process works.
Mark,
Yes.
I'm a little bit confused. You took your edited from ON1, and you put it back in Mylio?
Okay, what I put back in Mylio is a display image.
Okay.
See the display I added? When I hit the export option in ON1, I told it to rename it to underscore display
Right.
for the extension. So it did not overwrite my original file here.
Okay, now going back to what you said earlier about it won't be saved in Mylio.
Okay,
That's where I'm confused.
okay, let me show you this. Okay, so this is my original photo right here. I double click it and open it up in the wrong. You can see my original is still unmodified.
Right.
Okay. This is the original XMP that Mylio had, and it wasn't touched today either because the original RAW was not touched today. So the XMP didn't change either. What changed is throughout the edit, ON1 started creating this ON1 file, which is an XMP file of its own. And when I told it to save, I added underscore display in the export dialog. So what's saved to the ON1 folder directly into the same folder I'm working in. Now I'm in an album, but that's the nice part with this. You don't need to go reveal in folder and then work from there. You can stay right within your album. Mylio knows where the original is located. So this is the picture that got added to Mylio, but this never got touched. And the reason ON1 can edit the display is because it's got the ON1 file here. Does that make more sense?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, no
Yeah,
problem.
but what? I'm not following why you didn't allow it to be placed side by side with the original.
I could have, but I still would have needed a different name. I could have put underscore edit here because what ON1 wanted to do by default was to overwrite my original raw file. And it's not altogether unsafe because it's got the ON1. So I didn't word that right. It does not overwrite the original file. That's incorrect. ON1 never does that any more than Mylio does. But it does put the information in the ON1 file. What I wanted was a display copy. Now you don't have to do this. You could let it quote unquote overwrite this file, which it will not do, but it will create the ON1 file. So you still won't have a second file. They won't be side by side. The only way to get them side by side is on the export to come up with a different name. Doesn't
Or
have
to
to
use
be.
a different file type. Like I would personally, if I wanted them side by side, I'd probably save my edited version as a TIFF.
Yep, that'd work.
And then that would be side by side. So it's really a personal choice whether you want to stack them using the underscore display, and that way you only see your image once, or do you want to see your original and your edit side by side? There's a good case to be made for both of those. And I honestly jump back and forth between those two methods myself because I haven't landed on which one I prefer.
Okay, the reason I stay with Ding is because I've heard, I have no personal witness to this, but I have heard through a lot of the forums that ON1 does better with dings than it does with TIFFs. And I suspect the reason why is because they now have an entire second product line they sell that includes plugins for the Adobe suite. So I suspect there's a reason they've put more effort into the ding than they have the TIFF. I mean, any way you look at it, Adobe's the king of the hill in this industry, and that's not going to change anywhere in the foreseeable future. So everybody tries to be as compatible as they can with Adobe. So, and Ding is Adobe's format. It's in the public domain now, but they invented it. So.
Let's see here. And John asked a question, are you using the ON1 catalog? And so I replied that you're using the that sidecar file rather than using the catalog.
Correct.
And it doesn't actually, when you do this process, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't actually save anything in the ON1 catalog because you're basically using it as an external editor.
Yes, that's correct. It does not use the ON1 catalog at all. Now, I have done experimenting in the past where I've loaded my entire Mylio library into ON1, and then tried to do this monkeying back and forth the way Mylio does with Lightroom. And again, it's significantly complicated that I'm afraid I'm going to hurt one of my original pictures if I do it. And since ON1 doesn't have any useful sync mode, plus it's cloud-based sync, I'm not going to leave Mylio for ON1. I just want their editor, and I just want Mylio's DAM. So I want half of Mylio and I want half of ON1. So.
Mark, another question.
Yeah.
The edit that you showed us earlier on your wife's damaged photo, was
Yes.
that done in beta on Photoshop, or was that done on ON1?
No, that's beta Photoshop. Currently, there's no one on iPhones or on computers that can do photo restoration as well as Photoshop beta. They're the king of the hill. And unfortunately, I did a number of those pictures because she had a box of old photos. So before I cut my Adobe subscription, I scanned it all, did the retrofit through Photoshop, and then shut it all down and told her
that's very discouraging. Because I have a number of photos like that.
Yeah, Photoshop beta is the best I've ever worked with. There's another one that works really well now, but it runs on the iPhone. It's called PixTuner. It's a new one. They don't have a lot of high ratings, but that's because they don't have a lot of ratings. But it works really well. But I don't like doing restorations before I do edits, at least cropping. So doing them on the iPhone, to me, the iPhone's a transfer device for me. I go from my big phone to the iPhone into Mylio.
Well, how do you feel about PhotoMine for restorations? I've used a lot of PhotoMine's tools, and if you have the paid version, I think the quality is a lot better. Now, I would still say that the beta tools that are inside of Photoshop are still king, but PhotoMine's tools do a passably good job.
Is it automatic in PhotoMine? I haven't tried it. I have a paid license to PhotoMine.
It is. So I think it's all like you have to actually say, do this to it. And you can colorize, you can do enhancements, you can do go in and on faces and it'll make faces sharper and things like that. It works pretty well.
Will it repair tears and scratches?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's something like if you have PhotoMine and then you have ON1, you can go in and use the erase and heal tools inside of something like ON1 and fix that if you need to.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's got another box of about 1,000 pictures, which aren't going to get edited by hand. That's not going to happen.
You have to kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to spend the most time on. There's a lot of pictures in my library as well that have imperfections on them, fingerprints, little smut, different things that have marred them over the years. And, it's not going to happen.
I do keep photos that I ultimately want to restore in a separate album, independent of others they live in. And when I get enough of them, I'll sign up for a 30-day subscription to Adobe, or a 14-day, whatever it is they give you. And because I know how the process works now, and I just drag them through and shut it down again. And I've got enough different email addresses because I come from the computer industry that they're never going to get wise to me. And if I need another one, I own my own web server. So.
Alrighty then. Let's see here. Are there any other questions you guys have for Mark? Mark, did you have any other pictures that you wanted to demo or?
Not really, but I have a question actually. Steve, you said you use a Stream Deck for shortcuts. I have seen Stream Decks advertised all over the place. What is it and how does it work?
So I have one here on my desk as well, and it's a small device that you can program buttons to do different things. Like I have it primarily that I use for when I do their Q&As and our coffee breaks to switch between different scenes. So if you noticed when I've gone from the scene that's just me to the scene that has me and the my screen or different things that I pull onto the screen, I just hit a button and it changes my scene, and that's the Stream Deck controlling that. Stream Deck works with things like, I mean, there's all sorts of applications that it works with. So you can also program in things that are like keyboard shortcuts. So you can just hit a button and it'll go ahead and switch that mask mode for you, for instance. So you can do little things that you do often, you can pre-program into that, and you can have it set up to be like pages. So you click the next page and there's a whole new page of your little shortcuts there on your little button controller.
So can you program it to drag and drop into albums?
I haven't tried.
Useless device.
You're too funny. Yeah, Steve says hotkeys, start programs, turn on lights. Yeah, actually, just to kind of show, I have a button here to turn on my lights, my studio lights. So lights off, lights on. That's on my Stream Deck. It's just a super helpful little tool that I have on my desk. I would say it's not necessary, but it's a nice to have thing.
Yeah, he responded with Keyboard Maestro also. I use Keyboard Maestro to get around some of our keyword deficiencies. Like I can't ever have duplicate keywords where one character is misspelled because I got Keyboard Maestro that monitors all my keywords.
Nice.
So all I do is hit again, and that originally came from one of the forums. I can't remember the name of the guy that did it, and then I've enhanced it over the years. But yeah, I use Keyboard Maestro a lot. When all the conversations came up, you know, from the I can't remember what they called it, the users that get questioned on this internal stuff. When all the stuff came up about keywords, I had a long conversation with Rich explaining how I use Keyboard Maestro to get around some of those issues. And he was actually shocked that I was able to program my way around some of that. So anyway.
We have another question here from Ted and Lucine. For the photo that you edited and exported as underscore display, does that exported file now appear adjacent to the original RAW in the Mylio folders view? So no, it does not.
No.
By adding that underscore display, what you're doing is you're telling Mylio to stack them, and you're just going to see that edited version. If you wanted to see your original and your edited version side by side, you wouldn't put underscore display at the end of it. You would just say maybe underscore edit, or you change the file name slightly in some other way. But the underscore display specifically tells Mylio to stack them.
Yeah, Mylio stacks are kind of interesting. When I was originally kind of debugging this workflow, I wanted to stay with the same picture because it was a horrible picture to start with, and I figured I'd just keep working with it. I might even get it better at some point. But what I do, since the physical location of that underscore display file is kind of a mystery to me, I don't physically know where it lives. It certainly isn't in your folders. So it's a Mylio secret. So what I do is I go into, here, I'll show you, because I never get the name of it right since they changed it. I go down here to safe delete. I turn off safe delete. So I click this button that says delete from all devices. I'm never going to get used to that, Angela. Never. And then I come in here, I delete the underscore display, and I delete the .on1. This is something to be very careful of. Monkeying around in Mylio's internal file structure, whether it sits on your disk or not, it will get you in trouble eventually. Eventually you'll make a mistake and you'll get in trouble and you'll be talking to support or tearing your head out for a few days like I did. And then when you're done, you just put this back on restored deleted files, and it won't bring them back that way. And then you can do it again. But as far as your question of where's this thing hidden, it's a secret. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I mean, they're stored right. The underscore display files are stored right next to the original file in your file system.
Oh, they are. They are there?
Yeah, that's what you're just looking at. You could find that underscore display right there in the.
Oh, I see what you mean. I think what she was referring to
Oh.
was in the folder structure. Maybe
Oh, as far as seeing them in the Mylio Photos folders view.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's Mylio magic that makes those.
Yeah. It's hidden because it's a stack, and you actually want it that way. It'd be like having stacks in Adobe and then keeping everything expanded. It doesn't really serve a purpose. Again, if you want a separate image to sit alongside it, either save it in a different format, TIFF, or if it's something you want to share, a JPEG, or change the file name completely. So.
All right. Let's
There
see.
any
Are there
more?
any other questions before we wrap up? I really appreciate that you guys are all here today, that you've had some great questions for Mark. And Ted and Lucy and also say it'd be nice to have optionally expand collapse stacks. Absolutely. That's something that it's a ways out on the roadmap, but it is on our roadmap to implement just to kind of manage expectations. I wouldn't expect to see that until at the earliest, the end of next year. But it is something that is desperately wanted by myself as well. Especially coming from a Lightroom background where I'm used to having that functionality. I miss it terribly. So hopefully we get that back at some point, or get that in sometime in the future in Mylio.
We might even have it before we get albums.
You mean the drag and drop? You're going to have drag and
Yes.
drop sooner than that, I think.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah,
All right.
Don't commit
Any
to too much there.
any parting thoughts, Mark?
No, that was really about it. I just wanted to let people know there's a way to do this, and it's very seamless, compared to the Lightroom process because of Adobe's catalog. The catalog is what makes it so difficult. When you have two catalogs, you need to keep them in sync. This way, there's no second catalog. It just makes it very easy. And with the next release of ON1, it'll have most of the rest of the features of Adobe of Lightroom in particular, that I kind of miss. Point color doesn't exist, or an equivalent to point color does not exist in ON1. It will in 2025, and it will be this fall. So it's coming fairly soon. There's a number of things, but for me, point color with luminance are the best editing tools that exist. I love them. Every picture I use uses point color and luminance. So.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you again, Mark, for sharing your expertise and sharing your workflow. I hope everyone got a little something out of that, expanded ideas of how you can work with ON1 or possibly other tools. If there's other things that you would like to see us cover in a webinar or other coffee breaks, things like that, please let me know. We're always looking for ideas. And if you have an area of expertise and a workflow that's unique that you'd like to share, please let me know. We'd love to do more of these user spotlight webinars and get more of our community involved, because you all have such unique ways of seeing things and doing things, and it helps us all grow. So with that, I want to thank you again, Mark, for being here, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow at Q&A.
I'll be there.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.